So basically, Kate asked me to put this together for all of the flavors to talk about test cases. Right now, as you guys know, I don't know what you guys are doing at all for any of your application tests, but at least for the ISO tests that the flavors participate in, all the ISO tests are Ubuntu-centric, and so if you have a tester utilize and go through the ISO testing, they sort of have to read between the lines and understand that Ubuntu doesn't look like Ubuntu or whatever it is. KDE is especially pretty handy. It's so different.
You either love it or you hate it.
What's that?
KDE, you either love it or you hate it.
Yeah, you either love it or you hate it. Anyway, so that's the summary, which is basically up there as well. So again, Ubuntu QA, we plan to move to a test case management system. Over the past cycle, we looked at Moztrap and tossed around some other ideas. The current, I guess, ringleader on that is to utilize the ISO tracker itself to manage our test cases, to expand it to do that. That session is unfortunately tomorrow, and we really wish that would have been on Monday. It influences so many things, but nevertheless, so that decision is still in the air, but I think that's pretty much what's going to happen. It's all that session is going to be about is how exactly we do it and what that looks like. So I threw together a couple things on the agenda. Basically, short-term and long-term plans. The short-term plans being that what are the flavors going to do this cycle, seeing as it's not in place, and it's not going to be in place. Even if it's in place by the end of the cycle, it doesn't help you for this cycle. So,
So are you thinking changes here just for 1210 or also for the point releases in terms of test cases?
What do you mean?
Any of these changes that we made short term, will these be only applicable to test cases that would be run for ISO testing and use any other kind of testing on 1210? Or do you think that this is something that would also be used when point releases are being spun and being tested?
Oh, right. So for 1204.1.
Right.
I don't know. We can talk about it.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so I guess the open question to everybody then is, so I know how ISO testing and how the flavors are testing ISOs. Again, you're using the ISO tracker and the Ubuntu specific test cases. How about application tests? Does anybody have what you do or?
In Ubuntu, we have a short test and a long test, which are documented on our wiki.
Okay.
And those can be done, both of them can be done with live CDs. And they pretty much go through some of the basics of first testing XFCE itself, moving windows, making sure borders are looking correct, making sure there's no artifacts or anything on the screen. And then I believe we go into some of the, I'm not the testing lead, I'm just here, so. And I've done a little testing for them. There's also a few applications we do just a couple of spot checking, making sure they open, making sure you can do some basic tasks, but it's all manual. And we've never used any, I don't think we've ever used checkbox. And I mentioned it in channel the other day, and they were like, "Oh, that's neat." So, I mean, there's definitely interest moving forward to do some more of that. But for now, we're just following a script on a wiki page to test some very basic things, and then telling people to use it and tell us what's wrong. So.
About other flavors.
So with Ubuntu, we don't have any ISO tests like that for anything besides ISO testing. And it's partially because I don't expect that we could change a lot of things with MythTV, and that's where most people are most of the time. So if you have a problem with MythTV, then it's going to be a lot of work to change that stream in terms of like the experience or anything.
Right.
So I'm not sure if there's a lot of value to us going and adding ISO tests otherwise.
For Ubuntu.
Right.
Fair enough. Sure.
For
Ubuntu.
For Ubuntu, we have some test cases for manual testing for some of our application. I write them, I think, 1 year ago to try to have some test cases for people who want to test and have some basic testing. I'm not sure they are all running all the time. I know sometimes when the tester sometimes they run them. I know there is, particularly on the file manager, they run them because it's not up to date for now. But we mostly follow them for ISO testing, the test cases which are common.
Okay.
So we know we have some different applications, but people who do the testing don't bother for, like when you have in the test cases launch Firefox, we know we have to launch Chromium because we have Chromium. So I don't know if it's a subject of
It's okay.
discussion,
So
but,
you said they're on a wiki. Is that correct?
it's on the wiki, on the test cases wiki.
So you don't have anything outside of the test cases wiki, basically. So you don't. There's not any testing. Okay. Okay.
And I think, so for Ubuntu on the ISO tracker, it's fine to use the Ubuntu post-installation stuff, because, I mean, I can't remember what you like open up the update manager maybe, and we have that.
Right.
You do some command line stuff, we have terminals, so, like,
Right.
there's nothing that, it's not actually a big challenge. It's not like we need to explain to our testers that it's written for Ubuntu. It's all very simple stuff. But we were actually thinking about writing something on that. So on the Ubuntu tracker, we'll have a separate installation, maybe, wiki page.
Well, I mean, I guess one of the things. So you see under long-term planning, the question is, will the test case management system support flavors? AKA, there has been interest in the past, both from Ubuntu and Ubuntu. I don't know about the other flavors I've not heard of having your own sets of test cases, and Ubuntu as well. Simply because a lot of the folks that they're trying to introduce to testing have a hard time because they can't follow along necessarily, or they realize it's not written, so then they're confused.
Yeah,
They don't know if they're in the right place.
I ended up doing a global jam a year ago, so it was for the NAMI, where I printed out the long and the short, and I brought it to the global jam, and I had everyone go through it. And we were confirming bugs and we were testing it and stuff. It was actually really good, but that was the only way I could get people to go through the tests, because otherwise they were like, I don't know about this. I brought along ISOs. But
Okay.
So the other things, I mean, I don't think that we wanted to invest a lot in test cases because if we don't see people using them, it's just a wasted effort for us to be directing elsewhere. And so far, we haven't even seen people using a lot of our ISO tracker test cases.
Okay.
I'm not really sure how we can solve that kind of problem.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's up to the individual flavors. I mean, what you guys think about if you want to adopt application-specific testing. One of the things is for Ubuntu, and probably a bit of Ubuntu and Ubuntu, they all can utilize at least some of the test cases from Ubuntu.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because especially when we're talking about applications, to some extent anyway.
Right.
So, again, it's sort of up to the flavors if you want to maintain that. If you don't think that that's useful, at least right now, and you want to focus on the ISO testing, we can talk about that instead. That's a much easier. It's something that you got to have. Your ISOs have to work. So.
Right.
It's no good if the ISO is broken. Okay, so let's talk through the short-term planning then. So I've got a couple questions. You guys can direct the discussion any way you see fit for us. But a few things that I was thinking of that should probably happen. Currently, the test cases are on that test case wiki, which you can pull up, I guess, if you want, real quick. I'll be on it.
Sure, certainly.
Go to just go back to the root of the domain.
Return to the main page, I think.
Yeah. Okay. If you scroll down, so you see those applications. So those are all gone. Those are all deprecated, which is the point. So the only thing in here that is still correct should be under, I think, install. And this is where the ISO tracker actually links to. So there's the classic desktop live session. Yep. And you can see sometimes in there things are mentioned. Testing other distribution, they give you a couple examples. So the question is, while they're still in this wiki and until they get migrated, or we come up with a better place for them, do you feel like any changes need to happen specifically, to be specific to your distributions, that you need to add text in them?
So we were just planning on moving our stuff from the wiki.ubuntu to here. I put the links to ours, and these are bad.
Okay.
So we were just planning on copying stuff over to here and maybe fixing up formatting a little bit to be more in line with this.
Okay.
So at least for us, we have different Ubiquity plugins that this list of walkthrough of all the steps won't match to ours.
Okay.
I'm not really sure how that can be expanded upon though.
Well, we can link out. I mean, if you create, again, thinking short, long term, hopefully we'll have a test case management, so then you can create them yourself. But you still can inside the wiki, and we can have the ISOs for your images linked to your specific test cases.
Okay.
And you can even start by cloning this per se, right? But that would be then you're starting to manage your own test case. Just the downside is I suppose you have to maintain that. The upside is that it makes a whole lot more sense than this, which is probably not even a valid test case for you, right? So.
Well, I think that maybe at least for us, the best thing to do would be to maintain it at least for one cycle and see how it works. See if people actually start using it, and if they're not using it as much, then exit after that cycle.
Okay.
And go back to just using your guys's. Just that we don't have to sign up for a huge maintenance burden if it turns out that it's no benefit to us.
Let's see. Right. So that's sort of the idea. Planning, evaluating test cases that you feel need to be written in your case. So with Ubuntu, though, only publishes DVDs, right?
CDs.
Oh, just CDs.
Yeah.
So you have a i386 and an AV64.
That's all we have.
Right. So again, a lot of that's actually not very difficult at all to write test cases for those, just for install. It would just be a couple test cases.
Right. Okay. I guess I could sign up for doing that then for next cycle, but we're only doing point releases, so it would only be for 4.1.2 that these would be used.
Yes, because you're LTS only, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it's even more straightforward for you.
Yeah.
Okay. But the only caveat of that is if you do want to use it for 12.4.1, that comes in June.
Right. So get done soon.
Get done soon, yeah.
Okay. So these will I have edit access to go and put them on here? Just log in and it'll be able to?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can even try that.
I don't actually have my OpenID here with me, so I won't be able to.
But yeah, if you have trouble with that, speaking of which, everybody knows my email. They don't want to contact me. Yes, I hope so. Feel free to contact me if you have trouble. Okay, so how about the other flavors that are at least here? I know you don't necessarily want to make a decision, but you can take an action item if you're willing to talk about it with the rest of the team and see what they want to do.
Sure.
It sounds like you guys already have, Ubuntu already has the idea, you're going to migrate to the wiki.
Yeah, so we're going through a wiki right now, moving stuff to the website, moving stuff to this wiki. So
Okay, so it's sort of the same thing. You'll have, so then on my end.
I don't know if we're going to have a special installation one, maybe, but Ubuntu one's been working fine.
Okay.
But we might fix post installation and then. maybe add our short and long tests to the QA wiki just for now, until it gets converted to actual test case and checkbox or something.
Okay, I'm going to take the action to make sure that the new test cases that you guys write are linked to the ISOs properly.
Okay.
I don't necessarily know what all involved with that. It shouldn't be anything big, but we'll make sure that happens. Okay. What else? So collaboration. So we talked about, although this is probably a long-term thing then, since no one sounds like they're gonna actually focus on application tests, at least for the moment. I think that's more of a long-term thing, and so we can decide if you think any actions need to happen now or not. But basically where collaboration is going to occur with Ubuntu and the flavors. And again, it's going to be all of an application level.
Is there any possibilities of getting, if we get automated testing for applications on Ubuntu images, to have that same testing for the flavor images as well?
Right. The only thing, you're certainly welcome to use the infrastructure that we create. In fact, you would be encouraged to use it. And so I don't know if you were in one of the earlier sessions where we talked about having a meetup at least once or maybe twice a cycle with all the flavors to just talk about things like that. So to make sure Ubuntu and Ubuntu and Ubuntu, all of you guys are doing different things, and some are doing things better than others in certain areas. So it would just be a good idea to sort of all talk to some extent from a QA perspective as we're trying to ramp up the effort, what's going on and what everybody's doing. And what that'll allow me to do then is to talk about where we are with QA and the tools that we're using and how you guys might be able to, utilize them as well, if that makes sense. Just so we stay connected. Because again, right now, so much of this is sort of in progress. Right? Okay, so again, a long-term planning, migrating test cases is a new system. If we're going to go ahead and utilize the wiki, then that shouldn't be an issue. I'll note that.
Wait, so are we using this website then, or the wiki?
No, I mean, if for the short term, if you guys are rewriting test cases specific to your ISOs and you're putting them in the test case wiki, you shouldn't have to worry about migration, because when we migrate, we'll migrate ours and yours.
Okay,
right?
gotcha.
It'll all happen at once. It would only be an issue if you've got something else somewhere else.
Okay.
Then there would be an action. So. Let's see, the session is called Expanding the ISO Tracker Test Case Management Capabilities. It's at 11 tomorrow. I'll put a link in the pad. So obviously, as part of that, I want to make sure that it supports flavors, but beyond that, I don't know if there's any specific requirements you guys may have. But if you do have them, or think you might have them, it's probably a good idea to show up and talk about them. What else? Documentation, that's probably the same thing. So any actions that we think we want to take on the collaborations for application testing, or do you think we want to hold for a cycle?
I think, maybe we'll revisit it in our first meeting.
Okay.
Because I think I need to go back and talk to
actually, yes, it's, all right. Okay. That's pretty much it for me. So whatever else you guys think you might need or want to talk about, we're here. So now's a good time. If not, we all get to go home early. I'm excited, actually. I'm glad we all got to meet, or at least the ones that are here. Because I think, again, we can do some good things. I was talking about the Ubuntu team and how helpful they were for ISO testing with the final precise ISOs. I mean, the whole release period, but especially then. So the Ubuntu team had a lot of need for testing, and they pitched in, so that was really cool. So I think there's a lot of that good collaboration that can happen. So it was just really neat to see and experience that. So.
Do you guys have any sort of automated testing that we could do, like that'll spin up our images and VMs and just make sure that it'll run through and do a basic test and use the whole disk and whatnot?
Right. So there's a whole suite of tests that are running on Ubuntu images now. I was talking with one of the members of the Canonical QA team. We had a session earlier, and I'm assuming everyone saw the UAuth demonstration. That's what their team's building, and so that's exactly what that does. They're migrating all of their stuff to that, and basically you write the test case and it does everything for you. Sets up the whole thing, runs it, spits out the results, and hands them to you.
So what kind of test case is written? Like you have a little snapshot that has to find a graphic of the VM and find this is where I need to click to make this go? Or how does it work?
How does it work? I'm not completely certain on all the technical details, but they basically precede an ISO image so that
it's preceded.
It's
Okay.
preceded, right?
Okay.
So they're not right. There's no automating the point clicks, right?
Okay.
But they set up the preceded image, and then they set up the VM and fire up the VM. They run the test, and then hand you back the results. So the good news is for any of you guys that want to take advantage of that, all of that sort of hard work is done. And there's test cases that, again, they're Ubuntu specific, but much in the same way as on the ISO tests here, because they are ISO tests. They're very similar to what you guys are doing, so we would probably very easily just sort of extend them.
Mm-hmm.
If you'd like, I can take an action to make sure I sort of bring that to our meetup. I took some actions with Carlos to sort of publicize that a bit more. There's no reason that nothing in there is sort of secret or anything. It's not socialized or publicized real well, but it's not public. It's
Right.
all public. It's just sitting there. You'd have to go figure out where it was and then go find it and use it. So.
Yeah, I'd love to leverage that with ours at least.
Yeah.
I think having a VM test would be much better than the fact that we have ISOs that aren't tested for days until people actually test them and tell us that they tested them.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be a good step forward.
Okay. Anything else?
That other day when Stephanie had said that auto upgrader is actually running for us, I'm not sure if you actually took an action at that point to let us see the results. It was an auto upgrade tester that went from Honorific to Precise. Do you have access to that as well, or do you normally get to see that?
The auto upgrade tester. I don't necessarily know what you mean, but I mean, when we're talking about these automated tests, one of the test suites does upgrade testing. So
Okay.
that would be part of that. Same thing. So if you wanted to test your LTS to LTS upgrades, that's a possibility.
Yeah, I think we'd definitely like to do that as well.
So that would just be one of the same way that you provision it. I think we can also provision an old one and then run the upgrade.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. We good? Maybe?
I'm good.
Yeah. Sounds good, guys. Again, if you need anything or are curious about what's going on in the wider world of QA, feel free to contact me anytime.
Thank you for your time.